Okay, so now we have midday prayer take two. Um, I'm starting all over. I just gotten started, so join me together. I hope Jean and Lynn and others that were with me can reconnect with me. But looks like things are going okay. Let me check one thing first to make sure, and then we'll kind of go from there, hoping that everything stays connected this time. My apologies. So looks like we are up and running again. So we're going to center ourselves as we breathe in the breath of God and we breathe out our cares and our concerns. And we breathe in the love of God and we breathe out our doubts and our despairs. And we breathe in the life of God and we breathe out our fears and our frustrations. Our reading today comes from Revelation, the 21st chapter, verses 1 through 6a, technically, the first part of the verse 6. So hear these words from the writer of Revelation. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them, and they will be his peoples. And God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. For the first things have passed away." And the one who was seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." Also he said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." Then he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." Those are words of the Lord that we can reflect on today. You know, Revelation sometimes can be a daunting book to read through. The imagery is confusing and challenging and sometimes scary. Lots of people have tried to interpret all that Revelation has to talk about. I think we have to remember that Revelation was written to a group of churches that had been formed post-resurrection of Jesus. Probably had been waiting on Jesus. You know, the Gospels say Jesus tells his disciples that he would return before they saw death themselves. And so time has passed, and these four churches, or these churches that are being written to, are living under the oppressive rule of the Roman Empire. And I've got to think that they're thinking, where is God? When will this happen? When will all of this end? And we'll get to the end of the story with God. Because you see, God had an intention at the very beginning of time that we read about that in Genesis, this beautiful time when everything was provided for by God. God's people were created. We were to live in harmony with one another. And then that kind of all fell apart. And God's been actually at work trying to rebuild that ever since. Now, first, God did that through the law. And then God did some work through prophets. And then finally, God became enfleshed in Jesus. And it was at that time of the enfleshment of Jesus and then his crucifixion and his resurrection that God at least took a major step in bringing about the new creation, which was God showed God's people that death did not have the final word, because prior to that, when you died, that's when you went to the place where God was not, right? And that brought an end to that relationship. And through Jesus' resurrection, we are promised that relationship never ends, that there will be this other happening, this other second coming, when God will bring together God's people and sustain them and love them and be with them forever. And that's exactly what this chapter in Revelation is trying to help us to see. What this beautiful image of what this looks like is as God completes all of that work and puts death to death, God comes down among God's people and dwells with them. It is a hope-filled image. It's a hope-filled promise that I think gets us through the really challenging days. I had a friend of mine who used to always remind me these famous words, basically, and I'm sure I've seen them attributed to several people. So they're not mine, and they're not my friend's words. But I can't recollect exactly who said it or who might have said it. But it goes something like this: if in the end we think everything, or we believe everything will be okay, and we really believe that, if everything's not okay, then it's not the end. So therefore, today is not the end, but there will be an end. And we just heard about this ending. And this ending is this beautiful time when God will finally put death and mourning and sorrow and everything to death. And then we will know what it is to fully live in the presence of God. That's a hope-filled promise for us today. It's a hope-filled promise our friends from Camp Hill are going to sing about. It's a hope-filled promise that we're going to give thanks for as we come together and as we pray as God's people, a community of faith, drawn together in the hope of the resurrection. So here are my friends from Camp Hill, and we'll get together and pray. Again, if you would like to put some prayers, specific names in the prayer list, please do that at this time, and I'll try to include them as best I can. So here are my friends from Camp Hill.
There's a peace I've come to know, though my heart and flesh may fail. There's an anchor for my soul. I can say it is well. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise. There's a day that's drawing near, when the darkness breaks to light and the shadows disappear, and my faith shall be my eyes. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will